Guys, my name's Lloyd Ross, and here is another value video for all you property investing masters in our group. I hope it's going to be valuable to you. Today's topic is on, of course, how do you research an area? What do you look for in an area when you're buying property? And it's actually a lot more simple than you think, because the principles around property investing are always very much the same, and you don't have to be too clever to figure out where to invest. It's usually written on the wall. Firstly, you would want to invest in an area that's not overbought, okay? So where it's not peaked. And of course, you want to invest in and around a city. I think it takes not a lot of brains to figure out that's where the people are, and that's where people want to live. And so that's where you'll be able to rent the premises a lot more effectively. And then of course, you want to be close to schools, you want to be close to the hospital, you want to be close to transport. Location. And if you can be closer to the ocean, great. But those are the factors you've got to look for. And I think in Australia, we've only got a few options to choose from. I think they would be in and around Brisbane and Gold Coast, called the Southeast, around Sydney and around Melbourne. Perth, quite dicey sometimes because the economy there is so led by the mining sector that even if you stuck around those three, largest cities in Australia, Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney, I don't think you can do too wrong. So that's the first thing. Pretty easy, isn't it? 3 options to choose from. At the moment, it's pretty prevalent to see that the Sydney market's overbought. You've only got to go on to Facebook and see all the memes on there about how you can buy a shack for 13 million. And the writing is on the wall that it's overpriced. And the other way you can tell that is that the yields are about 3%. Very, very high yield compression. The property market shot up and the rents haven't kept up. And so I find it hard to see any value there. Pretty obvious. I think if you look at all the newspapers, if you look at all the news and you're following it, you can see that the Sydney properties come back by 4% this year. So then you look to Melbourne and you think, okay, Melbourne's going pretty good. It's got a lot of the highest growth suburbs, but do you still get the same sort of value there? Perhaps you could. And so you would look at, like, for example, I'll just do this quickly while I'm on here. I have this app and it's called Yahoo Finance, okay? Yahoo Finance. You probably can't see it on my phone, but that's it there. And if you go to the news on Yahoo Finance, there we go. It says, Australia's 20 fastest growing housing markets revealed. Click on it. Scroll down to the bottom, and it's got here, and if you jump on the Australian Bureau of Statistics, it's even got it on there too. And it's got the national top 20 building and population hotspots. There you go. And number one is Mickleham, Europe, which is in Melbourne, northwest of Melbourne. It's a growth rate of 35% in population. I don't think you could go too wrong there. And then, of course, second is Pimpama, Gold Coast, and it's got a population growth rate of 30.8%. We've been drumming on about that for the last 5 years. If you've been in the group, we talk about Pimpama a lot. Coomera is much the same. It's on this list too. It's number 12. The rest of the suburbs are Melbourne-based. There's 1 or 2 in Sydney, but the prices there will be quite high. So I think if you're in and around any of those cities, you'll do well. I think if you avoid Sydney right now because it's so easy to see it's overbought, so stick with Melbourne or Gold Coast. And if you can't afford Melbourne because it is a higher price city for property investment, of course you go to the Gold Coast. You can buy a place in Pimpama now at this present time for $510,000 roughly. And it's a house. And I think if you buy that, and you sit on it for the next 20 years, you'll be wealthy. That's the reality. Remember back to 2003, houses in Coomera were about $180,000, and now they're $600,000. It's very, very simple. There's nothing really to it. The reason why those places are growing so quickly is because A, they're very close to 2 massive cities, and they've got lots of infrastructure going in. In fact, Queensland's got the second highest amount of infrastructure spending in Australia. You've only got to get on Google and figure that out. It takes 2 seconds. And then you've got all the schools and hospitals going up. And you've only got to drive there and have a look and you can see it all. Where people go wrong is they try and get a bit too clever, I think. I think if you keep the macro factors in place, those 3 cities, understanding which one's overpriced, which would be Sydney, sticking to Melbourne or Gold Coast, and if you don't have enough money to buy Melbourne, it's a very, very logical decision to go to the Gold Coast. Where would you go on the Gold Coast? Well, I'd go in one of those Pimpama, Coomera, Maudslin areas that are seen to be, even on a national finance app, seen to be in the top, or certainly one's top 2. Like, I mean, that's it. I think get your deposit, and you'd need at least $80,000, probably more like $100,000 as a deposit for property investment, and book a time. You know, someone like me can take you out there, and you look at it, you sign the contracts, you put your deposit down, you let the building complete, you get a tenant in 2 seconds because it's a very high sought after area, and the tenant pays the interest, and you sit there and do nothing for the next 20 years. That's how easy it really is. It's so simple. I think people just think it's more complicated than that, and it's not. I mean, right within the last, how long was this video going for, Haley? 5 minutes? The last 5 minutes I've just outlined where I think I would want to be buying property. And there's not much to it. It's not very complicated. I didn't buy a report. I didn't, spend hours on realestate.com. You could do that if you wanted to. Where I think people actually go wrong is that they just don't make a decision. They never make a decision. So they have this decision fatigue, like analysis paralysis. If you can go and buy a property in Pimpamar right now for $500,000, I don't think you can get that anywhere else in Australia for the growth rate. It doesn't exist. And there's a few there. They're on flat blocks. Drive there, you look at the place, you sign the contract, put $1,000 down, you buy it. That's it. Get it built, and tenant goes in, starts paying. I mean, really, it's so simple. The hardest part, I think, is to hold it. So the hardest part is to make the decision, and the hardest part is to hold it. So when it comes to making the decision, I've seen it before. You're in there and you've seen the block and it looks good and everything, and then you go to sign the contract and you think, oh my God, what if I lose everything? I know these are the ideas. What if I lose everything? And firstly, I mean, every single time someone acquires a property, it's subject to finance approval anyway. So that when you're signing a contract, it actually doesn't mean anything. It's not even a live contract. It means nothing. It means nothing until you get finance approval. And after you get finance approval, you've got to give instructions to the solicitor to go forward anyway. And once it settles, the sky doesn't fall down, it settles, the money's paid to the developer, and then the house is built from drawdowns from the bank. It's finished, the tenant goes in within 2 weeks. That's roughly about how long it takes. And then the tenant starts paying the rent. The property manager goes in to manage it for you. Sometimes you can have an unruly tenant, but in some of these areas that are high growth areas, you just don't find it. It's just not as complicated as what people think. And so I think if you're looking at researching property, make it really simple. Focus more on making the decision and focus more on having the patience to hold it for 20 years. And I think you do really well. So I hope that's been helpful as to what to do or what to look for when you're researching a property. Very easy. You got any questions, pop them below. I'll come back and I will comment specifically to you and answer them. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon.